So we are doing mantra 9 today?
Yeah.
Mantra 9 of Isopanisad. Those who engage in the culture of nascent activities, those who engage in the culture of nascent activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. Those who are engaged in the culture of nascent activities shall enter into the darkest regions of ignorance. Worse still are those who are engaged in the culture of
So-called.
Is it nascent means is it bad? What is the meaning of
Nascent.
Nascience means ignorance. Agyan. So those who are ignorant of knowledge, they are anyway going to go. But worse than those are those people who are engaged in so-called knowledge, who invent their own philosophy and knowledge.
We need to say
We'll see. Purport. So, let's read the purport. Okay, so who wants to read today?
This mantra offers a comparative study of Vidya and Avidya. Avidya or ignorance is undoubtedly dangerous, but Vidya or knowledge is even more dangerous when mistaken or misguided. This mantra of Sri Isopanisad is more applicable today than at any time in the past. Modern civilization has advanced considerably in the field of mass education, but the result is that people are more unhappy than ever before because of the stress placed on material advancement to the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. As far as Vidya is concerned, the first mantra is explained very clearly. The Supreme Lord is the proprietor of everything, and that forgetfulness of this fact is ignorance. The more a man forgets this fact of life, the more he is in darkness. In view of
next
it-
up. अभी उधर मैनेजमेंट का जरूरत है उधर. हाँ? क्या वो? नहीं नहीं, मुझे यहाँ का ही आवाज़ ज़्यादा लग रहा है. आउटसाइड तो ठीक है.
In view of this, a godless civilization directed toward the so-called advancement of education is more dangerous than a civilization in which the masses of people are less educated. Of the different classes of men, karmis, jnanis and yogis, the karmis are those who are engaged in the activities of sense gratification. In the modern civilization, 99.9% of the people are engaged in the activities of sense gratification under the flags of industrialism, economic development, altruism, political activism and so on. All these activities are more or less based on satisfaction of the senses, to the exclusion of the kind of God consciousness described in the first mantra. In the language of the Bhagavad Gita 7.15, people who are engaged in gross sense gratification are mudha, asses. The ass is a symbol of stupidity. Those who simply engage in the profitless pursuit of sense gratification are worshipping avidya according to Sri Isopanisad. And those who play the role of helping this sort of civilization in the name of educational advancement are actually doing more harm than those who are on the platform of gross sense gratification. The advancement of learning by godless people is as dangerous as a valuable jewel on the hood of a cobra. A cobra decorated with a valuable jewel is more dangerous than one not decorated. In the Hari Bhakti Subodhaya, the advancement of education by godless people is compared to decorations on a dead body. In India, as in many other countries, some people follow the custom of leading a procession with a decorated dead body for the pleasure of the lamenting relatives. In the same way, modern civilization is a patchwork of activities meant to cover the perpetual miseries of material existence. All such activities are aimed towards sense gratification. But above the senses is the mind, and above the mind is the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul. Thus, the aim of real education should be self-realization, the realization of the spiritual values of the soul. Any education which does not lead to such realization must be considered avidya, and to culture such nescience means to go down to the darkest region of ignorance.
What is the point here?
was thinking about this in terms of what's happening in India as well and here in Australia as well. For example, this recent issue of Kanayala in India, right? The so-called education system that we have at the moment is teaching all the wrong things to today's students and in turn brainwashing them. That's happening in India, but here in Australia as well we see that when the kids grow up and when they go through the school or education system, right, they teach us to be very open-minded, have an open view of everything. But that is actually more dangerous than people who are less educated. That's what we say here. Because of, especially poor people who are especially poor people who don't have much knowledge, not so-called learned, gone through the education system. In one sense, their level of surrender is more, when you think about it, than people who are educated but not devotees. Because this Isopanisad is for basic for newcomers as well. So from that point of view, that's what I was thinking.
Anything else? You are sitting in a class and this verse has been read and everyone is looking at you to explain. How will you explain?
Srila Prabhupada really explains here that those who are engaged in sense gratification are simply movers, and that is, they are just worshipping avidya or maya. So there is no educational advancement also in the name of civilization. So this knowledge in ignorance is same as, or it can be more harmful, just like a cobra, which is very dangerous, is decorated with a valuable jewel. So is same way, this so-called knowledge is very dangerous if it is done in abundance.
Actually, Prabhupada stresses that the so-called knowledge is more dangerous because this technological advancement, if it is not coupled with the correct principles, it increases the problems in the society, anxiety levels. And we can see that, recently there has been real big boom in technological devices. Like we are using iPad and iPhones and WhatsApp and this and that. And even though technologically there is a lot of advancement, but because the core principles, spiritual principles are not being taught, these things are just increasing the problems and anarthas. For example, circulating photos and this and that, and so many problems which have sprung mainly because of the advancement in technology. In our times, when the technology was not that advanced, it was less, the problems were less. Now, even though scientifically ज़्यादा advancement है, लेकिन problems और ज़्यादा बढ़ गए because the spiritual principles haven't been taught properly. So Prabhupada is not exactly, I think he's not against technological advancement or scientific advancement. He's against advancement without the correct application of spiritual principles. This is what he's objecting. He's not just objecting for scientific advancement.
In one sense, probably it also sounds like there is no need for so much. Yeah, there is no need for so much of technological advancement if your spiritual values are.
Sorry.
I mean, from the purpose, it sounds like it also sounds like there is no need for so much of technological advancement or the focus that is placed on it. If your spiritual values are actually in place. Prabhu just mentioned that Prabhupada is not only objecting technological advancement but also the values behind it. But if the values are in place, then it also sounds like there is no need for doing so much technological advancement. If we are saying that the problems are increasing, so if that foresight is already there, then one would not waste time in working in a direction which is going to increase the problem. So it is obviously like the education that we are getting in the universities is, it is half knowledge which we are using to progress. That's what it is, the purport indicates.
To regress life,
Yeah.
not progress.
Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I think in one of his poems, one of the jokes says that generally we are sabha maya vaibhava tomar bhajan raj. So I think that's what Prabhupada is saying. But all this material education is nothing but maya vaibhava. It's all just glory of maya and so badha hai near gana spiritually. But again, if you have to explain to new people, then you cannot say that okay, this is not needed. You have to say that it has to be clubbed with spiritual teaching. Otherwise, because look at us now, Prabhu. When we were in schools and all that, we didn't have all this. Still, we were having recent life.
But we still had, quite a lot of Maya even in our time.
Different, but it was much less than as what I feel it is at the moment.
So Prabhupada says in Srimad Bhagavatam that there is only one problem in the world. What is that? Lack of Krishna consciousness. That's all. Lack of Krishna consciousness was there even when we were young. Lack of Krishna consciousness is there even today. And it may continue tomorrow also. The nature of sense gratification is different. Okay. So earlier, for example, sense gratification was available through X media. Today it is available through Y media. Correct? Be it anything. Be it meat eating, illicit sex. Anything. Earlier, to eat meat you had to go to a restaurant and eat. But nowadays everywhere it is available. And you can sit at home and order. So, illicit sex. Today it is coming on internet. Earlier there was no internet, so people used to smuggle cassettes of illicit sex. So, at all points in time, lust, anger, envy, greed, pride have always been there. So, the problem is not with technological advancement. The problem is with the lack of Krishna consciousness. That is a key point in this paragraph. What is Krishna consciousness? Krishna consciousness consists of Sambandha Gyan, Abhideya Gyan and Prayojana Gyan. Who am I? What is my relationship with the Supreme Lord? What is the goal of human life? And how do I attain that goal? So this is called as knowledge. This is Raja Vidya. This knowledge is not being taught in any of the universities. On the question of poor people being more simple or being more spiritual than rich people, maybe statistically one can say that. But really, Krishna consciousness, Bhakti has got nothing to do with one being poor or rich. One who is extremely poor will also not do Bhakti because he is extremely poor. One who is extremely rich may not have any need for Bhakti. They may think so. They may feel very secure with their bank balance. So Bhakti is not dependent on any external circumstance.
So, Prabhu, it is not dependent, but isn't the initial surrender? That if you are poor, do you think that they are more inclined to be?
See, if we go to in Bombay, if you go to early, if you go to the footpath and tell people join the Hare Krishna temple, whatever food that you are begging for is freely available there. All you have to do is join you can join. Take Krishna consciousness seriously. Nobody is barred from becoming a brahmachari. Give them a Bhagavad Gita free. Tell them read it. Okay? And then in whatever mother tongue there, and then ask them to join the temple, people will not join.
That happens in Bhaktivedanta as well, though. You get free. Still, it's difficult to get the people to come.
So rich, poor has education, lack of education. If someone is uneducated, doesn't mean necessarily he will be a devotee. They may be in what is possible is that they may be in higher mode of goodness, possibly. Obviously, because they have not been exposed to the instruments of passion. They may not have the latest cell phone where you can download something from apps and enjoy. They may not have all those. So they may, because of that, they may be coming across as simple. Because from our lens, they are very simple. But simplicity or complexity is a question of how receptive one is to the messages of God. If one is not receptive to the message of God, it doesn't matter whether he is uneducated or whether he is educated. That person is a complex person. Bhakti is not dependent on wealth. But of course, yes, Kunti Maharani herself said that Janma Aishwarya Shuta Shribir Yedamana Madapuman. It means the more you have wealth, followers, and everything going well in life, you will tend to think less of God. That is true. Because only in times of adversity do we really even chant attentively, even as devotees. Otherwise, till adversity comes, we don't chant attentively. When everything is hunky-dory, our chanting also is just mechanical, finishing rounds.
Somewhere in the middle is more confusing.
Somewhere in the middle, when
it's too poor.
Yeah, in the zone of uncertainty also, Krishna consciousness is very good. Yeah.
What of uncertainty? What of uncertainty?
Zone of uncertainty. Right. The zone of uncertainty, Krishna consciousness is good. Yeah.
Prabhuji, just a question. How will now we hear from the senior devotees from Charan Prabhu that there are a lot of schools that we need to develop or where the core values needs to be taught in. So how will that reflect or overcome this problem?
How will what overcome the problem?
The way of upbringing the kids in those kind of environments where the actual values are taught and how the material things are to be used or taught.
Yeah, so obviously, if we can establish a Gurukul for the children so that they don't have to go to these slaughterhouses, obviously that is very good.
Because Srila Prabhupada also has done similar kind of schooling, right? Where the farm communities and the schooling were there and the kids used to. So will that not help that kind of?
It will definitely help, but parents have to be, how many parents will be willing to, let's say suppose we open a school in the farm. I'm not sure how many devotee parents will pluck their children out of private schools, grammar schools or high performing public schools and put them, saying that okay, they will, at the end of the day, the child will learn agriculture, which is actually good enough, and Krishna consciousness. How many parents will actually do that? I do not know. Maybe many will do. I don't know. So for bringing about such reforms, we have to have first faith in the philosophy. If we have absolute faith in the philosophy, then yes. But again, it also depends on the quality of Gurukuls that we are establishing. The Gurukul should also have qualified teachers whose purpose is not, who have come there with a mission. If people are not on a mission in these schools, then it will not work. But yeah, so Prabhupada is saying here that whatever activities that we do is based on our identity. Whatever activities we do is based on our identity. Right? The way we identify ourselves, so will be our actions and sphere of activities. Because this lady had said that I am a doctor, then doctor. But if we really identify as servant of servant, then we will become Samadarshina. We will be servant of servant to everyone, the entire mankind. Our only goal is then what? To serve our spiritual master, and for the rest of the world, how can I serve them in such a way that they get inspired to serve Krishna? Everybody will think like that. How can I serve this person? Such a way that this person is inspired to serve Krishna. Right? Okay? So Prabhupada says that because the Sambandha Gyan is not there, because we ourselves do not know who am I and who am I supposed to serve, so then what do we do? We develop false identities. It is called as Upadhi. With that false identity, we think I am Indian. The moment you think I am Indian, then who will you serve? India. Right? The moment you say I am Punjabi, then who you will serve? Punjab. You say, what is it? Jai Maharashtra. If you associate with that, then you will say, सबको मारो जो बाहर से आता है, पकड़ के मारो सबको. It's actually like this is what is going on. Yeah, it's actually fact. It's fact. It's on the newspapers, recent newspapers. Why it is coming like that? Because you strongly identify with that I am this. But if we break that identity, Prabhupada broke that identity. Strongly broke that identity. He cut that identity and he said that you are the spirit soul. So, if we have these false identities, then Prabhupada is writing, then we will do all these things. Altruism, political activism and so on and so forth. Even if we think of ourselves as a change, as a Masiha, then our activities will be like a Masiha. Because we are thinking that I am a prophet. But actually our position is what? Servant of servant. So if we think like that, then only our activities will be. But if we genuinely think that we are servant of servant, we don't genuinely think like that. That is our problem. Our problem is my problem also. We are not there. So till the time we come to that mood, then we will never be able to serve in a perfect way. So Prabhupada is bringing that to the center. The center of everything is that knowledge which will then define our thoughts and actions and our mission. That identity which will give us our mission, and that mission on which to fulfill that dream, then we will act for that. So that knowledge is important of the Sambandha, Avideya and Prayojana. And people who do not have that are called as ignorance. Are people who are ignorant. Avidya. Avidya means person doesn't know Sambandha, Avidya and Prayojana. So that is about ignorance. Now Prabhupada is talking about pseudo knowledge, which is worse than ignorance. So who will read?
According to Bhagavad 2.42 and 7.15, mistaken mundane educators are known as Vedavadarata and Maya Paratara Jnana. They may not also be atheistic demons, the lowest of man.
Who is outside? Kirtan.
Those who are Vedavatarata pose themselves as very learned in the Vedic literature, but unfortunately they are completely diverted from the purpose of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.15 it is said that the purpose of the Vedas is to know personality of Godhead. But these Vedavatarata men are not at all interested in the personality of Godhead. On the contrary, they are fascinated by such fleeting results as the attainment of heaven. At the start, as stated in Mantra 1, we should know that the personality of Godhead is the proprietor of everything and that we must be satisfied with our allotted portion of the necessities of the life. The purpose of all Vedic literature is to awaken the God consciousness in the forgetful living being, and this same purpose is presented in the various ways in different scriptures of the world for the understanding of the foolish mankind. Thus, the ultimate purpose of the religion is to bring one back to Godhead. But the Vedavadarata people, instead of realizing that the purpose of Vedas is to revive the forgetful soul's lost relationship with the personality of Godhead, take it for granted that such side issues as the attainment of the heavenly pleasure for sense gratification, the lust for which causes their material bondage in the first place, are the ultimate end of the Vedas. Such people misguide others by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. Sometimes they even condemn the Puranas, which are authentic Vedic explanation for laymen. The Vedavadaratas give their own explanations of the Vedas, neglecting the authority of great teachers, Acharyas. They also tend to raise some unscrupulous person from among themselves and present him as the leading exponent of Vedic literature. Such Vedavadaratas are especially condemned in the mantra by the very appropriate Sanskrit word Vidyayam Rataha. Vidyayam refers to the study of the Vedas because the Vedas are the origin of knowledge, Vidya. The Ratas means those engaged, Vidyayam Rataha. Thus means those engaged in the study of the Vedas. The so-called students of the Vedas are condemned therein because they are ignorant of the actual purpose of the Vedas on account of their disobeying the Acharyas. Such Vedavadaratas search out meaning in every word of the Vedas to suit their own purpose. They do not know that the Vedic literature is a collection of extraordinary books that can be understood only through the chains of disciplic succession. One must approach the bona fide spiritual master in order to understand the transcendental message of the Vedas. That is the direction of the Mundaka Upanishad. Mundaka Upanishad.
Mundane word. Mundaka.
These Vedavadarata people, however, have their own acharyas who are not in the chain of transcendental succession. Thus they progress into the darkest region of the ignorance by misinterpreting the Vedic literature. They fall even further into the ignorance than those who have no knowledge of the Vedas at all. The Maya Paratara Jnana class of man are self-made gods. Such men think that they themselves are God and there is no need of worshipping any other god. They will agree to worship the ordinary man if he happens to be rich, but they will never worship the personality of God. Such men unable to recognize their own foolishness, never consider how it is that God can be entrapped by Maya, his own illusory energy. If God were ever entrapped by Maya, Maya would be more powerful than God. Such men say that God is all powerful, but they do not consider that if He is all powerful, there is no possibility of His being overpowered by Maya. Those self-made gods cannot answer all these questions very clearly. They are simply satisfied to have become God themselves.
It is the ultimate identity. Somebody can have. At least the doctor identity was better. And now I am saying I am
God identity.
Then क्या होगा तुम्हारा? कुछ नहीं होगा. Right? Yeah. So what are the points?
The Smartha Brahmanas in this world are more towards what the Vedas are, rather than acquiring and understanding the essence of it and applying it in their lives. On the other hand, of course, they are towards money, but primarily they are more towards what Veda says and not towards the essence and the meaning, actual meaning of it. That's the world which we are seeing today. And the disciplic succession is also not transcendental per se.
So Prabhupada is actually speaking of Shastra Tagnas, but all for a wrong purpose, not without a goal. They are becoming Tagnas just for becoming, just fulfilling their own ego and just to display their own egotism. And they become self-centered in their approach. And they negate the purpose of what they are doing. And that is because they are not guided by a proper Acharya.
I think he mentioned that it's better to be a normal, so-called, materialist or a karmi rather than putting a garb of transcendentalist, but misguiding left, right, and center. That is more dangerous.
Like claiming to be the Kalki avatar and all these things.
So they are like different class of people who are like some scientists or impersonalists, they all come under this category. Like, how do you understand Vedanta?
These are people who read Vedas.
People who focus on the dharma, artha, kama.
Use Vedas only for those four.
And moksha. But people who have an understanding of thinking that moksha means you will realize that aap hi Bhagavan. Moksha power. That is, all those four are attacked here in this purport.
You call it
Is that monism?
Monism.
Monism or
There is a super words for that.
In English, I don't know. Yeah, there are different ways you can deal with it. But Chaitanya Prabhu said the other day that nowadays he doesn't call Mayavadis, he doesn't use the word Mayavadi, he uses the word Advaitavadis. Okay. So Advaita philosophy is in one sense is bona fide. Advaita philosophy. It talks about the non-duality, the qualitative non-duality of Brahman and Parabrahman and soul. Right?
But he said that by itself has subdivided into two categories, and the category 2 was only which is not one of them.
So here Prabhupada is basically saying that worse than ignorance is half knowledge or distorted knowledge. Distorted knowledge. Which says that the goal of the Vedas is to attain the heavenly planets. Or the goal of the Vedas is by studying these Vedas, you will yourself realize that you are Bhagavan. So Prabhupada is attacking that. He says that is even more dangerous than that. Right? Because then what will happen, if such people start preaching, then everyone will think that, oh, this is what the scriptures are saying. They are better off not knowing the scriptures. Because to a person who doesn't know can be taught, rather than a person who thinks that he is knowing. So the person who thinks he knows, we cannot teach that person.
I know a person who said, who knows Bhagavad Gita, what we have today is all written by man and is teaching. And he's a staunch Vedic guy. He says, I only read Vedas, I don't read Bhagavad Gita.
You can't do much. So the person has to come to the platform of understanding. That's what Prabhupada is saying for such people only. Prabhupada is writing the purport that then you have to understand through discipleship, for which we have to have enough Shukriti to be able to come in contact with the pure devotee. If we don't have enough Shukriti, then it is very difficult purely by Jnanonmukhi Shukriti or by Karmonmukhi Shukriti to get Bhakti. Bhakti will only come when we have causeless mercy of the Lord. In some way we should have pleased a devotee in the previous lifetime, or we would have been a devotee who has not yet completed his or her bhajan, and then we continue as devotees in this lifetime. Otherwise, it is very difficult to become a devotee, even if we have mastered the Vedas, and if we know the art of ascending to the heavenly planets, or we know the art of impersonal liberation, moksha, dharma, artha, kama, or moksha. So Prabhupada is saying that these kind of philosophers are even more dangerous in society, and they give their own interpretation also. Yes, even if they say that the goal of this section of the Vedas is to attain the heavenly planets, and they teach the proper way of attaining heavenly planets, to that extent at least they are doing justice to the Vedas. But like Gaurang Prabhu says, Shukkalam Bharadaram Vishnum Sashivarnam Chaturbhujam. It talks about the 1 rupee coin or 50 paisa coin. So they have interpreted in that way. You heard that class? Yeah. If you have not heard, please hear a lecture by Gaurang Prabhu called the Saints and Swindlers. He talks about each of these categories of people. Charlatan, hoaxers, egotists. What is A? Aggressors and transgressors. Cheat. C-H-E-A-T. He talks about these kinds. Have you heard of that class? No, you have not heard. No, heard? Please hear that. Sarvasya chaham ridhi sannivishto. So chaha means tea. And sarvasya chaham means everyone like. And ridhi sannivishto. Sto means stove mein banaya. So, then yesterday I heard someone say, Sarva Dharman Parityajya has also been changed. Sarva is S-A-R-V and A has gone on this side. Sarva Adharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam.
Yeah.
So you can twist it whichever way. So these are even more dangerous. Better off our people are ignorant of it than doing the wrong thing and then thinking that they are acting in deference to the scriptures. That is even more dangerous. Better we are sick and don't know what medicine rather than continuously taking a medicine which is not a medicine. And when someone gives the medicine, they say, no, I am already taking medicine, no problem. I don't need your medicine. They are more dangerous. So that's the summum bonum of this verse, mantra 9. So any questions or comments? So mantra 10. The wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience.
As advised in chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, 13:8 to 12, one should culture knowledge in the following way. One should culture knowledge?
One should culture knowledge in the following way. Pardon? Culture is a verb here, not a noun.
Okay. One should become a perfect gentleman and learn to give proper respect to others. One should not pose himself as a religionist simply for name and fame. One should not become a source of anxiety to others by the actions of his body, by the thoughts of his mind, or by his words. One should learn forbearance even in the face of provocation from others. One should learn to avoid duplicity in his dealings with others. One should search out a bona fide spiritual master who can lead him gradually to the stage of spiritual realization. And one must submit himself to such a spiritual master, render him service, and ask relevant questions. In order to approach the platform of self-realization, one must follow the regulative principles enjoined in the revealed scriptures. One must be fixed in the tenets of the revealed scriptures. One should completely refrain from practices which are detrimental to the interests of self-realization. One should not accept more than he requires for the maintenance of the body. One should not falsely identify himself with the gross material body, nor should one consider those who are related to his body to be his own. One should always remember that as long as he has a material body, he must face the miseries of repeated birth, old age, disease and death. There is no use in making plans to get rid of these miseries of the material body. The best course is to find out the means by which one may regain his spiritual identity. One should not be attached to more than the necessities of life required for spiritual advancement. One should not be more attached to wife, children and home than the revealed scriptures ordain. One should not be happy or distressed over desirables and undesirables, knowing that such feelings are just created by the mind. One should become an unalloyed devotee of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and serve him with rapt attention. One should develop a liking for residence in a secluded place with a calm and quiet atmosphere favorable for spiritual culture. And one should avoid congested places where non-devotees congregate. One should become a scientist or philosopher and conduct research into spiritual knowledge, recognizing that spiritual knowledge is permanent, whereas material knowledge ends with the death of the body. These 18 items combine to form a gradual process by which real knowledge can be developed. Except for these, all other methods are considered to be in the category of nascence. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, a great Acharya, maintained that all forms of material knowledge are merely external features of the illusory energy and that by culturing them, one becomes no better than an ass. The same principle is found here in Sri Isopanisad. By advancement of material knowledge, modern man is simply being converted into an ass. Some materialistic politicians in spiritual guise decry the present system of civilization as satanic. But unfortunately, they do not care about the culture of real knowledge as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Thus, they cannot change the satanic situation. Continue.
commandments, 18 commandments of advancing in spiritual life.
What is satanic means? Satanic.
Evil.
Probably in the last point, what we were discussing earlier, we didn't want to become a scientist or philosopher and conduct research into spiritual knowledge. Like we were talking about technological advancement. Like if you have a brain like that, then better.
That is what Dr. T.D. Singh, Satswarup Das Goswami, he was asked a question. Sorry, Satswarup Damodar. He was asked a question. So many people are this. Sadaputta Das. Michael Kriegman. It is required to address all sections of society. It is required to have. It is imperative for us to connect to all the strata of society. Not every class is apt for every audience. For example, Rajkumar Prabhu, the way he is connecting with some of the world's leading scientists and talking Krishna consciousness is different than the way that we would. Of course, there are certain essential principles which are common to everyone, but then it requires a level of purity to be talking at a foundational level and still making an impact. Purity is the purpose. For example, when Radhanath Swami Maharaj spoke, I don't know how many of you heard the House of Commons lecture. You heard that? Yeah. So it's very difficult to speak like that. It's difficult to prepare a class and speak like that. That day, I was speaking with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu in the theatre. Not theatre, what is that? Reception for a long time. We had a detailed chat, some 1.5 hours. And he was asking me about, amongst many things we discussed the Bhakti Shastri class. He was asking me, how's your Bhakti Shastri going and what are you doing? So obviously then I told him that whatever we are doing is just coming from all of you. So I said that I try to hear from so and so speakers and try to get points and then add based on my own experiences. That's what I'm doing. Then I told him the only person's class who I cannot replicate, I cannot say sentence to sentence is I cannot say that. Not only Radhanath Maharaj, I can't even repeat what, for example, is only Jayapataka Swami Maharaj if he gives a class, or if Shankarshan Das Adhikari is giving a class. It's very difficult to speak like that. Because to speak like that you need a certain level of purity. I can't, suppose I sit in this class and say, stop illicit sex immediately. Suppose I say like that. Can I say like that? Maybe yes, maybe no. Depends on my own purity. Okay. So then it will have impact over others when I am saying like that. Or stop pursuing material desires. Be satisfied with what you have. I cannot have a modern latest iPhone in my pocket and then tell everyone that be satisfied with what you have. And at the same time be worried whether it will fall down and break. So we can't speak like that. We can't prepare a script from a spiritual master and then just script it and then come and talk in a chat. Love is the essential aspect of life or something like that. You can't. Without love, pursuit of spirituality is impossibility. Something like that. These are all statements which great people make. So we can't. I'm not saying that the other school lectures we are modeling are not great, but these are people who are next to Srila Prabhupada, that discipline, immediate layer, who have given their life for Srila Prabhupada. Any Maharaj, not only one specific Maharaj, any Maharaj, they have given their life for Srila Prabhupada. It's difficult for us to imitate any of these acharyas. So he was saying, yes, true. Of course, he was also telling, even I find, I never open my mouth and speak whatever he speaks. I try to keep it at a metaphysical level all the time. I can't, you are saying, I cannot write down. I cannot, even when I take notes, I don't take notes from his lectures. It's at a different level, you see. Ours is more connecting to people. So you can talk techniques, process, tools, practices, do's, don'ts, whatever. That is different level.
Sometimes if we repeat their sentence,
Yes.
it will be not as effective as they.
Yeah, definitely. It will not be as effective as they say. For example, so many people told me to chant 16 rounds. I never chanted. Gopal Krishna Maharaj told me, how many rounds you are chanting? I said, Maharaj, 8. From tomorrow you will do 16. And I did 16. I don't know how I did that. And I don't know why I did that. Even now I don't know what happened. There was something in his eyes. He looked straight at me. From tomorrow you will do 16. And to go to 8 rounds, it took me from 1998 to 2002. How many years is that? 4 years. 4 years it took to go to 8 rounds on one round. And then in one day, double. Straight. 100% job. Because of purity of a devotee and the real desire, blessings of a devotee. He said, you will chant 16 rounds. Next day he is asking me, did you chant or no? That I didn't expect. I said, yes, Maharaj. I thought I will do chant one day 16 rounds. But when he asked me next day, did you chant or no? I thought this man cares for me. He's got 50,000 disciples all over Delhi and all over India, all over the world. And he cares for a bloke like me. He is coming and reminding me, did you chant? I said, I'll do. I'll chant. From now onwards, I'll chant every day 16 rounds. He said, that is very good. And the next visit, he said, no, you must preach. I said, chant 16 rounds and preach. In fact, during that meeting only he told me. He said, to be able to preach, do you know you should chant minimum 16 rounds? And I didn't know why he told that to me. I don't know. But somewhere something was there, some connection was there. It can't happen this way. I couldn't have chanted because so many people told me. Every Ekadashi, 1 round increase. All that I have heard, whatever, we tell everyone. The only realization of Ekadashi is that so over 2 more hours. Tomorrow grains, chapati will come with dal. Sometimes our realization is like, it is my realization. So yes, one should, so we have to be able to connect to people. So to connect to people requires 2 things. It requires material skills and it requires purity. Both. Only material skills we cannot connect. With purity we need some material skills also at our level to preach. At that level, purity is enough. Prabhupada preached to everyone, if you see. Prabhupada's disciples have segregated themselves. I'll handle the Westerners, I'll handle Indian preaching, you do urban yoga, I'll do this yoga, whatever. But which yoga was Prabhupada doing? Nothing. He was under a tree. He was preaching to Americans, Germans. He didn't say, culturally, these people are different, so then I have to do this, that, nothing. Someone went to Prabhupada and also said that, Prabhupada, do we have to go with tilak and dhoti, to preach? Because people will see and tilak and dhoti and they may not buy the real product that we are offering. So, Prabhupada said, if they have a genuine quest for the real product, they'll buy it even with you wearing dhoti and tilak. Prabhupada had a different way of looking at it. See the 2 ways of looking at it. If they are looking for something genuine and what you are saying, they will buy from you whether you are wearing dhoti or whether whatever you are. But this person was saying that because I am wearing dhoti, they may not be. So Prabhupada that's called transcendent. It doesn't matter. Material designations don't matter. That is why it's called transcendent. But for us, we require some skills. So Prabhupada is writing, one should become a scientist or philosopher and conduct research into spiritual knowledge. Actually, there is nothing to be researched in spiritual knowledge. Someone has faith, then they will take it to Krishna Consciousness. But we have to connect to people. That is why we also need to do this research such that we know how to present it to different sections of society. So that people can relate to us and don't think that we are some cult, sectarian cult. Like Gaurang Prabhu was mentioning, I think I told you in the last class, someone is suffering from jaundice and the person is shivering, then he goes to the doctor. What the doctor give? बोलता है बहुत ठंड लग रहा है आपको, ले लो कंबल ले लो. Too much shivering, you are cold. And then doctor gives a blanket. And then what is the doctor called as? कंबल वाले doctor, he says. कंबल वाले doctor के पास फिर से जाऊँगा. Because he is a very kind person. He gave me a blanket because I was shivering. But what is the cause of shivering? Malaria actually, not jaundice. Cause of shivering was malaria. You are suffering from malaria. So he says when we go to a doctor, doctor also gives kambal. Kambal even that dukan fellow, the furnishings fellow can give. Babu Bhai Jagjivan Das, whatever. That fellow. Even he can give you kambal. Right? But when you go to a doctor, what does he want? What does he give you? He gives you medicine. So he said we have to know how to give medicine. Where is Irani? So there will be 2-3 questions in the exam from this section. Okay. So we have to give medicine. So we have to know what is the art of giving medicine to be able to connect to the patient. Once upon a time I went to a doctor. He was giving genuine medicine, but he spoke so rudely. I said, I will not take medicine now. In the childhood, he spoke very rudely. I said, I am not taking medicine now. But actually he was supposed to be one of the best doctors. But obviously, ego got hurt. Sometimes when ego gets hurt, you will not buy the product even if you know that person is giving you the right product. And that time what happens? People who are externally very good, they may cheat you giving the wrong medicine. That is even worse for us. So therefore, externally also we have to come across as gentle to be able to connect to people. We need skills, we need behavior to be able to preach. Both we need skills and behavior. And of course, at the core we need purity. Purity is the force. Books are the basis. So that's what Prabhupada is giving the gist of that only. Purity is the essence book. Prabhupada is saying that one should always read books. Somewhere, where is Prabhupada saying? Only read from the bona fide scriptures and all that. So he's giving all these principles. So if we follow this actually, if we follow this seriously, then we are a pure devotee. We follow. At least we are on the platform to become a pure devotee, isn't it? Okay, who wants to read further?
In the modern society,
these 18 items. We read that, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. You're right. My bad.
In the modern society, even a boy thinks himself self-sufficient and pays no respect to elderly men. Due to the wrong type of education being imparted in our universities, boys all over the world are giving their elders headaches.
Prabhupada uses the word boys here. Huh?
Thus, Sri Isopanisad.
Madhavanand Prabhu, enjoy. Come to me later.
10 more years ago.
Yeah. Huh?
10 more years.
10? Oh, 10 more years of misery. Good understanding. Okay.
Thus, Sri Isopanisad very strongly warns that the culture of nescience is different from that of knowledge. The universities are, so to speak, centers of nescience only. Consequently, scientists are busy discovering lethal weapons to wipe out the existence of other countries. University students today are not given instructions in the regulative principles of Brahmacharya, celibate student life, nor do they have any faith in any scriptural injunctions. Religious principles are taught for the sake of name and fame only, and not for the sake of practical action. Thus, there is animosity not only in social and political fields, but in the field of religion as well.
Okay, so Prabhupada is first attacking religion here. So what is that? False religion. What are the points here?
The quality of the education in universities about ignorance.
So from childhood we are taught wrong things. We are continuing to work hard. From childhood we have been taught and we are still continuing.
We are also teaching to our children.
Fundamentally there is something wrong.
दिल से बोला.
I was about to say. दिल से.
So, Prabhuji, what is the solution?
इस प्रॉब्लम का बात कर. I know out of all these lines, the first two lines are attracted. Others are for philosophical interest. First two lines are practical interest for you. Is that your question?
Prabhupada, later in the Prabhupada he mentioned that one should take the education from a Veda. Right? But then when you think about our today's generation, the kids who are going to be our next layer of the devotees, then they will...
Who said they will be the next layer of Veda?
Supposedly. At least
hypothetical.
Wish for it.
You can wish for it.
Yeah. At least I hope
You can pray for it also.
So I'm saying that if this is the problem, this is what's happening, and that's what we see as well, because as I was mentioning before, these schools and universities, especially the grammar schools and all that, they open up the thought process or the way the student think. They train them to think widely with open mind, right? But then with that, they go in a different direction altogether. Right? Because then they start thinking, why should I be doing this? And devotion service, it's all a myth. Devotion and God. I'd rather spend my time, helping some poor country or poor people and do some social work than do the devotion activity. That's where.
This is exactly how teenagers may speak.
Yeah, so that's where they're inclined to go for.
Yeah.
So as a parent or as a collective group, then what should they be doing?
Pray.
Pray.
Pray, facilitate as much as possible.
But there has to be some root cause why the teenagers think that the way that they think.
It's not about teenage. So somebody answered me, one of the devotees, Govindra I think. He said, every soul comes into this world with its own papam, bijam, putam.
Bag. He said,
Baggage. They don't manifest when the children are 10 and whatever. They manifest 13, 14, all that comes out. Till that time, you can imagine that if a child is 4-year-old and bijam, putam manifested, gaya comes. At that time it's nice only, cute, Achha lagta hai beta. You can't,
No, but there has to be something. So I understand that we can't force them or anything, but at least all we can do is facilitate their Krishna consciousness. But so that means that we are doing, our facilitation is wrong.
We have to do our job because it is said, Guru na shashyat, Pita na shashyat. What is the verse? Yeah. So do not become a spiritual master, do not become a father, mother if you cannot deliver your dependence. So we have a right only to do our duty as parents. What is the question? Sorry.
Solution.
So somewhere our facilitation of the kids' Krishna consciousness is going wrong.
Yes. No. Why are you thinking like that?
Because if kids are going away, that means one of...
No, that's the first lesson Govind Prabhu told me. He said, because your child is moving away from Krishna consciousness, don't ever think that you have done something wrong. Because there is no end to thinking like that. Also, just because your child is in Krishna consciousness, don't think you are doing everything right. That will give pride also. Okay. So, the soul's journey is determined by the Lord. We can only be instruments, nimitta matra, that's all. So we can only follow the process. the results are not in our hands. We can follow the process. There are certain do's and don'ts which are there with children. I am not saying I am an authority. Okay. I am no authority in this subject matter, but I am only speaking on experience. At least what did not, at least I can share with you. So what should be done is encourage the children as much as possible till they are obedient to you, till they listen to you, to come to the play mridanga, play harmonium, come for Mangalarati, come for festivals, hear Bhagavatam, associate with devotees, Maharajas, everything. So all that, I don't think I need to tell you, all of you know it. There is no rocket science here. Okay. I'm not unraveling something new. Okay. So all those things you can do. Okay. See, who is the fast reader? Okay, Karuna Prabhu, jaldi padho. Sri Isopanisad, what is this? What national? My goodness, we are so far. Okay, chalo padho.
Nationalism has developed in different parts of the world due to the cultivation of lessons by the general people. No one considers that this tiny earth is just a lump of matter floating in immeasurable space, along with many other lumps. In comparison to the vastness of the space, these material lumps are like dust particles in the air. Because God has kindly made these lumps of matter complete in themselves, they are perfectly equipped with all necessities for floating in space. The drivers of our spaceship may be very proud of their achievements, but they do not consider the supreme driver of these greater, more gigantic spaceships called planets. There are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems also. As infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, we small creatures are trying to dominate these unlimited planets. Thus we take repeated births and death and are generally frustrated by old age and disease. The span of human life is scheduled for about 100 years, although it is gradually decreasing to 20 or 30 years. Thanks to the culture of science, before men have created their own nations within these planets in order to grasp sense enjoyment more effectively for these few years. Such foolish people draw various plans to render national demarcations perfectly, a task that is totally impossible. Yet for this purpose, each and every nation has become a source of anxiety for others. More than 50% of the nation's energy is devoted to defense measures and thus spoiled. No one cares for the cultivation of the real knowledge. Yet people are falsely proud of being advanced in both material and spiritual knowledge.
So in one line, Prabhupada is talking about the lakir. You know what's a lakir? The line which does not exist between nations. There is no line which God has made. But based on that line, a whole defense budget is drawn. And a whole identity is developed. I am this. Okay. So we think like this. So this is the power of illusion. To make us think we are something else.
Sri Isopanisad warns us of this faulty type of education, and Bhagavad Gita gives instructions as to the development of real knowledge. This mantra states that the instructions of Vidya, knowledge, must be acquired from the Dhira. The Dhira is one who is not disturbed by the material illusion. No one can be undisturbed unless he is perfectly spiritually realized, at which time one neither hankers nor laments for anything. A Dhira realizes that the material body and mind he has acquired by chance through material association are but foreign elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of the bad bargain. The material body and mind are bad bargains for the spiritual living entity. The living entity has actual functions in the living spiritual world, but this material world is dead. As long as living spiritual sparks manipulate the dead lumps of matter, the dead world appears to be a living world. Actually, it is the living souls, the parts and parcels of the Supreme Living Being, who move the world. The Dhiras have come to know all these facts by hearing them from superior authorities and have realized this knowledge by following the regulatory principles. To follow the regulatory principles, one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. The transcendental message and regulatory principles come down from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such knowledge does not come in hazardous way of Nissan education. One can become a Dhira only by submissively hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Arjuna, for example, became a Dhira by submissively hearing from Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead himself. Thus, the perfect disciple must be like Arjuna, and the spiritual master must be as good as Lord himself. This is the process of learning Vidya, knowledge from the Dhira, the undisturbed. And Adhira, one who has not undergone the training of a Dhira, cannot be an instructive leader. Modern politicians who pose themselves as Dhiras are actually Adhiras, and one cannot expect perfect knowledge from them. They are simply busy seeing to their own remuneration in dollars and cents. How then can they lead the mass of people to the right path of self-realization? Thus, one must hear submissively from a Dhira in order to attain actual education.
So, a Dhira is the only one who is having real Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana Jnana. A Dhira is a person who is beyond all Upadhis. Okay, so a Dhira is the only person who can be a Samadarshi, who is not bewildered or who will not give a different treatment to who has approached him with a problem. Not that he is very inclined, Prabhupada was very inclined toward Bengalis because he was from Calcutta or something like that. No. Prabhupada was Prabhupada for the entire world. So, Dhiras are beyond sectarianism. Dhiras are people who are beyond identities or silos which are caused by religion or by nationalism. So that is the gist of what Prabhupada is saying. So as long as our identity is very clear that I am simply the servant of the servant of the servant, that the goal of life is to develop this mood. The process of developing this mood is chanting and following devotional life, and ultimately the goal is to unite. The greatest service is to unite every struggling soul in this material world with Krishna, and thereby ending their cycle of birth, disease, old age and death, and the corresponding miseries that come along with it. If someone knows that, then such a person can deliver the entire world. So otherwise, all other knowledge is useless. Ignorance is dangerous, but false knowledge is even more dangerous. It should not lead to this outcome. Srila Prabhupada ki